Happy Friday, everybody. Today we are going to be ranking all 7 Avatar seasons. That is all 3 of the last Airbender seasons and the 4 Legend of Korra seasons. I considered adding the M. Night Shyamalan movie to this list, and then I decided we all know where that's going to end up anyways. So we're just doing the 7 seasons of Avatar television that have aired so far. There have been rumors about an Avatar The Last Airbender live action show on Netflix for years, and supposedly that is still in production, but we haven't seen anything since the little teaser image that came out almost 2 years ago, if not more. But anyways, we're going to go through all 7. This might be a shorter tier list episode. I say that now. It might end up being 45 minutes long if I have too much to say. But I'm going to try to be fair. Some people probably won't like my rankings on this list. This is just my opinions and how I feel the quality of these seasons is as a whole, how well they blend together, how well the story is written, that sort of thing. But we will talk about that in more detail when we get into each season. So that being said, all 7 Avatar seasons, let's start with Book 1. This is Book 1, Water. I'm going to put Book 1 in B tier, and there's a couple reasons it's not higher than B tier. A lot of people love season 1. Or I'll probably use the word season and book interchangeably, just a heads up. But Book 1, obviously very nostalgic. It's the one that started everything. Compared to the later 2 seasons of The Last Airbender, or if you're from non-American, North American markets, they did rebrand it as The Legend of Aang. It's very childish. Most of it is very childish. The one thing that I think season 1 has against it that the other 2 seasons don't have is, apart from the occasional really good episode, and check out the rankings video that we did yesterday for my opinions on all the different episodes throughout the 3 seasons of Avatar The Last Airbender. But you have really good episodes peppered into season 1. Obviously, the Storm and Blue Spirit episodes I love. I like the Spirit World episodes. I love the finale. And I do like the first 2 episodes. They're a little childish. Avatar hadn't quite figured itself out yet. But the first half of season 1 is really childish and really just kind of dumb humor. And it doesn't take itself very seriously. And the episodes aren't very good. The first half of season 1 is not very good. The second half of season 1 is very forgettable. So I usually measure season 1 by the beginning, by the middle, and by the end. And I remember the first 2 episodes because it's the first 2 episodes and they're fairly good. I remember the middle section when we learn more about Aang's backstory and more about Zuko's backstory. And then there's the finale. And almost all of the episodes in between there are either forgettable or seriously lacking in quality. And season 1 has that significantly more than season 2 and season 3. There are really high points in Book 1. I love Book 1, but I can't in good faith put it above B tier when you have episodes like The Warriors of Kyoshi, immediately followed by the King of Omashu, and then you have episodes like The Great Divide and The Fortune Teller and Bato of the Water Tribe. There's so much forgettable stuff in season 1 that it's hard to justify for me putting it above B tier. But I still have a huge nostalgia, heartache. What's a good word that I can use on a PG channel? I have a lot of nostalgia for this season. Obviously, this is a season from my childhood. I remember where I was when most of these episodes aired, whether it be I watched it in my parents' bedroom, or I watched it in our living room, or I was at my grandparents' house. Like, I remember where I was when these episodes came out, and so I remember it very fondly. I think it's the weakest of all 3 original seasons of the show. Book 2 is S tier. I don't think Avatar has ever matched the hype of Book 2. There are still weak episodes in there. I mean, you got stuff like Avatar Day, I'm not a huge fan of like the Serpent's Pass episode. But all in all, the quality from season 1 to season 2 jumps spectacularly. The story arc with Zuko is perfectly executed and perfectly paced. The introduction of Toph to the group adds a whole new dynamic to the team. The team is probably the best it ever is chemistry wise. The writing is probably the best it ever is with Avatar. The pacing of the season is, especially the second half of book 2, I think is the best momentum Avatar has ever had. I love season 2. Season 2 does something that with a kids show that most studios, especially like a massive studio like Viacom and Nickelodeon, would not greenlight today, and usually wouldn't have greenlit even back then. But you have violence and war and underlying political tensions in a kids show that I don't know that I've ever seen in any other show of this caliber. I love all of the stuff with Ba Sing Se and the underground politics of Ba Sing Se. I loved it as a kid. I understood it to an extent as a kid, and watching it now as an adult makes me appreciate season 2 even more, and how they hype this location in Ba Sing Se up as this safe haven. And the entire first half of the season, we expect to reach this paradise, and we reach the paradise about halfway through the season, and it's completely flipped on its head, and it's not what we expected. And all of the character arcs culminate in this massive finale that, like, I loved book 1's finale, and I love book 3's finale. Book 3's finale probably is better than book 2's finale, but like the Guru and Crossroads of Destiny, I think is the peak of the show in terms of just where the characters were at writing wise, what the story was doing with the characters that we had. I love season 2 as a whole. I think it's absolutely S tier there. Then we move on to book 3. Now, book 3 is interesting. Let me take a drink real quick. I love book 3. Book 3 is very good, but book 3 loses a lot of the momentum that book 2 had. I don't think book 3 is as good as book 2. I'm going to put it in A tier. Here's why. Whereas book 2 has a couple duds in there, like I said, Avatar Day being one. I don't love the Serpent's Pass and Drill episodes, and so there are a few episodes peppered into season 2 that kind of kill the momentum a little bit. But all in all, season 2 is really propulsive. There's a lot of movement to the season, and it feels very cohesive as a whole. Book 3 feels a little all over the place. And I don't know if it's the way that they aired it in 2 separate parts or why it feels the way it does. But you have all of these grand events that happen. You have the Day of Black Sun invasion, and then you have the finale. So you have 2 separate finales, the mid-season and the end of season. But the storytelling throughout the season doesn't accentuate that or doesn't support that the way that like the latter half of book 2 supports the finale of season 2. And by that I mean you have a fairly good start to book 3 with The Awakening, but then you have basically an entire half season of them screwing around in the Fire Nation. Now, there are some good episodes in there, but all in all, most of these episodes are super forgettable for me or super inconsequential. You get the stuff with the headband where there's some underlying plot points that I really like. I like the indoctrination of the students in the school, but the episode plays everything off for comedy or for lightheartedness. The Painted Lady is a bad episode. Sokka's Master is very good. That's one of those that I really like. The Beach does a lot with character work, but that episode is also a comedy episode for the most part as well. I think all of the stuff with the Runaway plot it does a bit for Katara and Toph's chemistry, but it doesn't really do anything for the story. Nightmares and Daydreams is a setup episode, and then once you get to the mid-season finale, then the momentum is also killed until you get to kind of those final 5 episodes, what with you get the recuperation episode with the Western Air Temple, and then you get the Firebending Masters, which is a great episode on its own, but the pace of that episode doesn't really propel the finale forward. Neither does the Boiling Rock. The Boiling Rock really kind of kills that momentum for me. As much as it does for character work, the momentum isn't there. As soon as you hit the Southern Raiders, then everything goes towards that finale. Southern Raiders, even Ember Island Players, I think really sets up the finale well, even as a comedy episode. But season 3 feels very disjointed. It feels like the overall season as a whole doesn't have the momentum and the pace that something like season 2 had. I still think it's better as a whole than season 1 is, and maybe that's a contentious point. Feel free to argue in the comments about that thought there, but I think it's absolutely A tier, but I think it misses out from S tier because of some of those, the momentum and the way it doesn't feel consequential toward the finales in this season. We move on then to Legend of Korra, Book 1. Book 1 of Legend of Korra, I think, is C tier. I'm a Korra sympathizer, and you'll see that as we go through the rest of the Korra seasons. I really do like Korra. I think by the end of the show, it really found its feet. Korra had a lot going against it. Obviously, it's following up one of the most beloved children's shows in the last 30 years. It had to reestablish this world, and genuinely, a lot of people had problems with the technology and the way that the world was developed since the Avatar series ended, the original Avatar: The Last Airbender series ended. I think they do it very well. I like the establishment of the new technologies and that sort of thing. Early on, especially in the first 2 seasons, I don't know that the characters are that likable and that motivating. I love Tenzin. I love all of the stuff with the Airbenders in season 1 and season 2. I think Amon is a really cool idea at the start, and I think the more we learn about Amon, the less consequential his early actions become, to me at least. I think too much of this season is focused on the fun, which I know they're trying to retain kind of that childhood whimsy that Avatar: The Last Airbender had, but with older characters, I think they focus a little too heavy on the comedy in the first 2 seasons, especially in season 1. I think we spend a little too much time in the bending arena before we get into kind of the consequences of the Avatar, being in Republic City, all of this stuff with Amon and the Equalists. I think some of the characters are written a little inconsistently. I think both Satos are Hello Future Me has a really good essay on why he thinks that Asami Sato should have been the villain Link rather than her father. And I really like his opinions on that. I think there's a lot that could have been done differently. Now, granted, we're looking at this with hindsight. I think there's a lot with season 1 that could have been done differently for the first season of Legend of Korra. When it comes to the pacing of the season, you're going to see that a lot in this video. I have a lot of issues with some of these seasons based on their overall pacing. And Korra is even worse because whereas Avatar: The Last Airbender was very much an anthology series where each episode was kind of a standalone episode, Korra is very much built around a 13 episodes or 14 episodes, a season arc. And all of the episodes are kind of interlinked. So each episode kind of tells its own story, but not to the extent that Avatar does, where each episode is really its own story. Legend of Korra, you kind of have to watch all of the season together. I think Book 1 is okay, but I think there's a lot missing from it. And I don't think we really connect with the characters the way that we should. I think the character motivations are not quite where they should be writing-wise. The ideas were there. I just don't think the execution was quite on par with what they wanted. Then we move on to season 2. This is book 2, Spirits. I'm tempted to put it F tier. I'm going to be nice and put it D tier. This is easily the worst season in Avatar. It could have had, it had the potential when they started this season to be one of the best. The Water Tribe Civil War is a really cool idea that was set up, I think, very well. And they kind of dropped the ball about halfway through the season when they revealed the motivations behind the Civil War, and they took the consequences of a civil war out of the story, and they focused it on the spirits. As soon as this season starts focusing on spiritual warfare rather than a civil war politically between the two tribes, that's when things get really muddy. I mentioned in my Star Wars ranking tier list, The Last Jedi, the first time I watched it, I really liked, and then the more I thought about the consequences of that movie, I liked it even less and what it meant for the overall franchise. There's a very good episode, 2 episodes, it's a two-parter in this season called Beginnings, and we learn about the origin of the Avatar and the relationship with the spirit worlds and the origin of bending. And the first time I watched that episode, I thought about that episode the exact same way I thought about The Last Jedi the first time I saw it. Whereas I was like, this is a very cinematic, a very good-looking episode. I like the art design of this episode. I love that they're exploring the backstory here. Oh, it's cool that we get to see the first Avatar. It's cool that we get to see where bending comes from. It's cool that we get to see the spirit world interacting with the real world. And then I thought about it more, and I realized what showing us the backstory does to the aspects that we have on the Avatar and what it means for bending and how it kind of kills the mystique of the show. And the episode being placed where it is completely kills the pacing of the entire season. And so now retrospectively, the Beginnings two-parter I don't like, because it, like I said, it really takes away the mystique of the spirits and the mystique of the Avatar and kills the momentum of this season. Like I said, as soon as they start focusing on the spirits rather than the Civil War in this season, everything falls flat. I like the introduction of Varric as a character. I think he's a fascinating character. I think they rely a little too heavy on him for comedic relief with Bo. Okay, so let me reword that, because I know he's meant as a comedy relief character. I think his character is too interesting to be used solely as a comedic relief character the way they do in season 2. I think there's a lot of nonsense in season 2 to fill the runtime, and it takes away from the season as a whole. And then of course you get kind of the overall like superhero fight at the end where you have good versus evil, and that really diminishes the Eastern aspects that Avatar brought as a Western animated TV show. Does that make any sense? So in Avatar: The Last Airbender, we really wrestle with these ideas that there isn't really good versus evil. There are people who choose to do good and people who choose to do evil, and the goal is to find a balance between those two so that good can prevail. Whereas when we're introduced to the spirits of Rava and Vatu in season 2 of Legend of Korra, everything becomes very westernized. It becomes very much a good versus evil fight, and there isn't this moral gray complexities that we had in the original show, and it almost dumbs down the world. From my perspective, it dumbs down the world, even though Korra is supposed to be the more mature version of Avatar, if that makes any sense. And so nothing in season 2 really lands. It's really muddled, it's jumbled, it's all over the place. There's too many ideas going on at once, and none of them are delivered very well. I'm going to be generous and put it D tier, but it, for me, is easily the worst season of Avatar. Let's move then to season 3. And I can never remember which one is change and which one is balance. I think 3 is change. Don't quote me on that. Pretty sure season 3 is called change. But regardless, we're going season 3 of Legend of Korra. I think this is Korra's best season. And I am going to do something controversial and put it bottom of A tier. I understand that a lot of people don't like... There's a lot of controversy with season 3, and part of it is, I mentioned at the start of this video when we started talking about Korra, Korra had a lot going against it, especially when it comes to the studio. So Nickelodeon kind of poisoned the well with Korra. When they got to season 3, I think that's when they moved it online. They stopped airing Korra on TV. They reduced the production budget of the show, and it really took away from not necessarily the product they were able to deliver, but the producers of the show, or rather the showrunners, realized that Nickelodeon was no longer behind them. Now, this gave them a lot more creative freedom with the show, and I think that's why this season feels so good. It's just a disappointment that, like I said, they cut the production budget. They kind of poisoned the fan base because people weren't going to want to watch these episodes online, and so Korra kind of died as a mass media property after season 2. But Korra gets really good after season 2, which is kind of the problem here. So a lot of people don't like the bending aspects of season 3. They don't like the animation style of season 3. I actually think it looks really good. I like that they have kind of overamped the bending in this series and going into season 4 then. I think it adds an aspect to the world and the development of bending that is supported by the development of bending in the previous show. They do kind of dumb down the idea of anarchism with Zahir and kind of his motivations. I don't think his motivations are unwarranted, though. I think he is probably the best villain in Korra. I don't want to say he's the best villain in all of Avatar, but I think he's one of the most compelling villains in his background, his spirituality, and what he is trying to do for the world. He's just obviously misunderstood and going about his means in a very violent and very negative way. But I think all of the stuff to do with the rebirth of the air nomads is really a cool idea. Could have been delivered a little better. And actually, the more I think about it, I don't know that I can put it A tier, but I'm going to still put it above season 1 of Avatar: The Last Airbender. I think Korra is the best it ever is in series 3. I think we get to the point where we understand the character motivations. Even if they're not always likable, we understand them and we sympathize with them. Empathize with them. Anyways, I think the bending looks great. I think the whole aspect of the Earth Queen and what she is doing with airbenders for the continuation of her empire is great. I really like this season. If I am ever to go back and watch Korra, I always want to start in season 3 because I love what this season does for the show and the consequences that come out of season 3 going into season 4, which leads us then to season 4. I think this one is balance. I am also going to put this B tier. I'm going to put it below season 1 of The Last Airbender. I really like the stuff that they did in following up season 3. One thing that season 3 does very well, like I said, is set up consequences. Avatar: The Last Airbender had a lot of consequences to come out of the end of the show. And they never delivered on them, obviously, because it was a 3-season show, and it ended right before they showed us the consequences of the change in the world. What Korra does is you reach kind of this climax at the end of season 3, and it adds one more season to show kind of the emotional and physical repercussions of Korra's battle with Zahir in season 3, how his actions and his basically demolition of the Earth Kingdom affects the world as a whole going into season 4. There are a lot of elements of season 4 that I don't like. I don't love all of the stuff with the spirit energy being used as a nuclear weapon. I think is a little campy and a little poorly delivered. It feels a little too much like the end of season 2, and I don't like that. But I think Kuvira is a very compelling villain, not quite on Zahir levels, but I think her motivations are very good. I think her delivery is very good. I think the voice acting that Zelda Williams, she's voiced by Robin Williams' daughter. Yes. And I think the performance is very good. I think she's very compelling. I love all of the stuff exploring what she does with the outlaws in the Earth Kingdom and re-encompassing the Earth Kingdom into a new Earth Empire. I think the ideas of nationalism in a multicultural world are very well delivered upon in season 4. But there are a few inconsistencies with the relationship drama. The humor is a little all over the place. I kind of feel with season 4 of Legend of Korra, this in comparison to season 3, the same way I do about season 3 of The Last Airbender in comparison to season 2. It's like they hit a peak and they're trying to match that peak, but they're not quite there. I do really like the end of the show. I don't really have any problems with the finale of Korra. Like I said, I don't love the mecha suit and the big battle at the end, but I think all of the character storylines and the arcs and the world building going into the finale of season 4 are delivered upon very well. I think it sits firmly bottom of B tier. I do think it's good enough to sit in B tier, but not quite Avatar season 1 or the Last Airbender season 1 levels there. So all 7 seasons here on this list. Here's where we sit. Number 7 is Korra Book 2, Spirits is our D tier season. Moving up to number 6, then Korra Book 1, Air in C tier. We move up to B tier. Number 5, Korra Book 4, Balance. I really want to double check that I have those names right. I think it's Change and then Balance. Please don't quote me on that because I might be really embarrassing myself now. But then number 4, also in B tier, Book 1, Water of The Last Airbender. And above that, number 3, top of B tier, is going to be Book 3 of Legend of Korra that I think is called Change. And then number 2 in A tier is going to be Avatar The Last Airbender Book 3, Fire. And S tier, the best season of all of Avatar media. I am firmly in the belief that it is Book 2, Earth. I think that's the best Avatar has ever been and ever will be. And just to close out this video, I want to double check that I have Legend of Korra seasons named correctly. Give me one sec here. Give me one sec. Number of seasons. Lists of episodes. Book 1, Air. Book 2, Spirits. Book 3 is Change, and Book 4 is called Balance. Okay, perfect. So I haven't been wrong. Anyways, that's all I have. So, one more time. 7 is Spirits. 6 is Air. 5, Balance. 4, Water. 3, Change. 2, Fire. 1, Earth. Let me know what you guys think of my rankings down in the comments section below. Feel free to agree or disagree. Honestly, you could be as angry as you want. The more you say in the comment section below, the better it does for the channel. So I would like for you guys to agree with my rankings, but like I said, feel free to agree or disagree down below. Like, share, subscribe. There should be a link at the end of this video in the bottom right-hand corner to more Avatar The Last Airbender content. Otherwise, we have an Exploring Hogwarts Legacy episode coming out on Sunday, and then Monday will be our Avatar The Last Airbender live stream at 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific, so we'll hopefully see you for that. But in the meantime, we'll see you very, very soon.